you could see tons of hand sanitizer bottles as well as hand sanitizing wipes just littering the property. That's everywhere right now. And that's also what helped fuel this fire. But the Indiana State Police witness testified saying that it was very likely Anthony's DNA that was found on Grace. And not only that, that the entire courtroom, including loved ones of Anthony and Grace, had to watch his interrogation video. And it wasn't easy to watch. Police Department's Violent Crimes Unit has been here. They've had about 5 or 6 squad cars coming and going throughout the day when they were found murdered not far from this memorial. And while there is some relief in this case, those close to the girls are saying this fight is far from over. The lawsuit filed within the last week asked for a jury trial and punitive damages to 9 former patients of Praxis Landmark Recovery. These are the doors Donald Robin Jr. was escorted out of after he received his sentence. There was a lot of excitement, and he told all the voters, and even the ones that didn't vote for him, that he will be representing them in Washington. And everything is kind of clearing out now, as you can kind of see. I went into the mayor's office twice today to schedule an interview and caught him coming out of his office the second time. Do you have any comment on the police report that we have?
That's what we're not going to talk about.
Okay, I just want to double check. Thank you, sir. Is there a time I can schedule with you? And the storm hitting parts of Bruce Lake pretty hard, and right at the shoreline here, this massive tree is down, as you can see, one the same size right behind it. Wrestlers can't do actual drills because of state guidelines. But one wrestler tells me that he's just happy to be conditioning again. The district's chief academic officer has wanted to do something like this for a while in order to keep parents and students better connected with the schools. And Anthony's mother was also in one of the front pews, sitting not far from where he was with the defense. But Anthony was wearing a sweatshirt and sweatpants to court, and also looking straight down, sitting completely still as some of the prosecution's 7 witnesses shared some of the unimaginable details of the night that Grace Ross died. March 12, 2021 seemed like a normal day. According to Grace Ross's stepfather, Matthew Penn, on the witness stand, she came home from school, told him about her day, and left to play with friends at the apartment complex. Penn said Grace wasn't home after her curfew passed. Quote, "It was getting darker. She usually comes home on time, so I started looking for her." Grace had been with her 9-year-old friend on the complex's playground. The friend walked home, but Grace didn't. Family and people in the complex then started searching for Grace. One of the neighbors said in court she spoke with Anthony during the search, and she found some of the interactions odd. Quote, "He said she never came out of the woods. That's what he said, and said no one went in the woods besides him and Grace." Officers detailed on the stand how they found her body in the woods using an infrared drone, and said she was only partially clothed. The doctor who performed the autopsy said Grace's injuries were consistent with asphyxiation or strangulation. Quote, "When a person dies, cardiac function ceases. With all these injuries on Grace Ross, there was pink and red marks, there was blood, meaning she sustained them while she was alive." A sexual assault kit was performed, but the results have not been released yet in the courtroom. The trial is supposed to wrap up tomorrow, and the defense said that they don't have any comment at this time, and they're not planning on calling any witnesses tomorrow. But I'll be back here at 10:30 in the morning to bring you the latest from the courtroom. The tree behind me was completely uprooted, and the building up there is damaged because of it. And while there's plenty of storm damage here on campus, people throughout the community are dealing with the debris in their own yards. Power tools cutting trees and scooping up debris. These are some of the common sounds around Elkhart County after Monday night's storms. Some, like Carl Kurtz, couldn't get to work with a broken tree blocking his driveway.
I called my boss. I work for the Goshen Schools, and I'm trapped, so I'll be off today.
Elkhart County Dispatch says they received about 100 calls throughout the night, with 75 of those for downed trees and limbs in the roadway. They also say a lot of the damage was in New Paris and Goshen. Even with trees on houses, Elkhart County's Emergency Management Executive Director says so far no one has contacted them for assistance with cleanup.
I have received no calls for help with trees down on homes or anything like that. So I know there's damage out there, but maybe we just got lucky and it didn't hit the homes.
Darla Jackson from Goshen says she's lucky her old plum tree didn't hit the house when it fell down. She wasn't home when the storm hit, but her daughter was texting her updates.
We don't have the plum tree that landed in the flowers, and the rest of the trees have big piece, big limbs out of it, but I did not expect to see this when I came home.
Jackson is sad the tree is gone, but she's already looking into preventative maintenance so her other trees don't come down in the future.
After we get this cleaned up and get the brush hauled away, so forth, I'm just gonna have to find someone, I don't know who yet, but it has to be trimmed or it's gonna just happen again.
And if you need any help with storm damage, you can contact your local mayor's office, your town manager, or fire department, and they can help put you in touch with emergency management services. For those who grew up with both parents in a nuclear family, it's hard to imagine life without one of them. But what if you lost a parent and decades later still don't know where they are or what happened to them? James and Dina Sanders were just 2 and 5 years old when their mom, Janice Sanders, was last seen in Niles, July 1975. She was just 24 years old.
As a kid, you're just kind of confused at how this could happen and how no one saw anything or heard anything or found her. And so as a kid, you sort of, I know I just repress it.
You're going through puberty and you're growing up and then just trying to process everything, and you just make yourself forget.
According to police reports, Janice was last seen at Pete's Patio clocking out of her waitressing shift at midnight on July 21st. Witnesses say her ex-boyfriend, Gerald Liebertowski, had been at the restaurant for hours. According to police, witnesses described him as acting possessive and jealous. Reports say Janice was last seen with Gerald talking in the restaurant's back parking lot. Gerald was questioned by police the next day with facial injuries that witnesses say they did not see the night before. Police discovered Gerald was connected to another missing woman, this one out of South Bend, Janice Langs, in 1973. He was charged with first-degree murder in Janice's disappearance in 1976, and soon after charged with open murder of Janice. When Janice's case went to trial later that year, Gerald was found not guilty. After that decision, charges connected to Janice's disappearance were dropped. The cases through the decades have stayed cold, and Gerald died in 2010 at 67 years old. How many times do you think that your mom's case has gotten picked up and dropped?
I would say 1, 2, at least half a dozen times.
Yeah. And every time it was dropped felt like a new loss to James. But during the pandemic, he decided enough was enough. He researched his mom's case, and Michigan State Police reopened it in September 2022. Janice's case is now recognized as an abduction homicide.
The new classification, which, for the average person may just not be important information, but for us it's a game changer because it's a signal to us as the family that this time it's real.
It's also a group effort to bring these women home and give them a proper burial. Michigan State Police, South Bend Police, Notre Dame's Biochemistry and Engineering departments, and Western Michigan University's environmental and cold case programs all helping out. The highly competitive cold case program started in 2021 and has investigated 9 cases. The small groups of students tasked with organizing and digitizing old documents and meeting with detectives to bring a new perspective on these unsolved crimes.
Some of these cases are like 40, 50 years old and haven't really been looked at and given the attention, and you give them to a bunch of college kids who are super excited to get their hands on them. I feel like it really does help move along the process.
For Janice and Janice's case alone, the students worked their way through boxes filled with more than 5,000 documents. The program director says this was a major challenge.
It boggles your mind how much information is out there, but then when you can do a search on somebody's variation of somebody's name, and you can find out who was mentioned in every single page of that document within seconds, it just changes the whole ballgame, really.
Those in the class more motivated than ever to bring these families some sort of justice.
Knowing that there are real people still being affected by this, meeting Janice's family, they're still so driven to find answers, and that's what we're doing this for.
And James and Dina, more hopeful than ever.
And there's no reason why we can't find her. There's got to be no reason why we can't. Just because there's so much technology nowadays, and I just know those students out there, they're going to find her. I know they are.
With cold cases, time moves on and some people forget, but that pain remains for those who lost their loved one. But one Michigan State trooper could not shake Janice's case, and he's actually back helping the team investigate. I sat down with him for an interview in his Jackson, Michigan home, and his story only available tomorrow night at 6. For WSBT 22 News, I'm Erica Finke.